Hello, everyone. You might be a little bit confused as to why we're talking about dogs today, but trust me, I have a reason. If you didn't already know, because I've been sharing him on Instagram constantly, I have a little dog. I'm a dog mum now. He is a little Chihuahua. His name is Norman, and he is now part of the family. And my guest today definitely summarizes this when I joked that this is a women's health and home one podcast, and we're talking about dogs, but a lot of people are pet lovers. I'm sorry for those of people who don't have dogs or have cats. I'm not a cat lover. So we're just going to talk about dogs today because this is my podcast. But I hope you find this useful if you are a pet lover or if you're wanting to get a dog. I found it fascinating, and a lot of these concepts can actually be crossed over to human health, which I found very interesting. And the more that I was looking into nutrition for dog and different supplements and the gut health even, I was like, wow, this is a whole nother world. And a lot of it was kind of things I already knew, but I just never thought about it when it came to pets, because the last time I had a dog I wasn't into this holistic health world. So now it only makes sense for me that I treat him as holistically as possible, and I do the same things that I do. So he even has filtered water to drink, and my boyfriend Luke jokes a little bit. He's like, oh god, he's such a spoiled dog, but if I'm not drinking tap water, then I'm not going to give him tap water because of all of the contaminants. So just little things that we can do, just avoiding certain foods or unnecessary medications, which are all covered today by a professional. His name is Nick Thompson. And when I asked a few of my colleagues, and I called online, who should I talk to about holistic health for dogs in particular, Nick Thompson's name came up over and over again. So I'll give you his bio and then we'll get into the episode, because it's a long one and it's packed full of information from the very get-go, because he is used to doing seminars and lectures. So he was going, just giving me all of this gold information. And I just chimed in every now and again with some questions. But Nick Thompson is a vet that's been fighting for responsible, species-appropriate raw food for pets for over 25 years. He is the founding president of the International Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, and has co-authored a pioneering worldwide survey of 79 vets and their experience feeding raw food. He has co-organized international raw food conferences for the rfvs since 2012. In 1999, Nick established his practice, which specializes in holistic pet care, called Holistic Vet. And he's now based in Corsham near Bath. He offers homeopathy, natural nutrition, and herbal medicine, and a lot of good old-fashioned common sense, he says, for dogs and horses. His pet topics are gastroenterology, so digestive health, and the microbiome, and the misuse of pharmaceuticals in medicine. He loves researching all aspects of human and animal nutrition. He's a regular contributor to YouTube discussions on raw feeding and blogs to promote the raw feeding cause. He also shares his passion for raw feeding with a nutritional consultancy service to the premier raw pet food companies in the UK and Europe. We get a few brands today. He has lectured and consulted in raw food, nutrition and medicine all across the world now. In this episode, we start with the basics. What is raw food? Why is it important? And why is it species appropriate? And why we as humans should be eating a species appropriate diet, not something that's created in a lab. We bust some of the myths. So the risks of parasite and bacteria, he basically says they're a non-issue, just to summarize. But if you want to know why, then definitely keep listening. The problem with regular kibble, so dried food, how to transition across from dry food, because sometimes there's a bit of a process. Other dogs, it's just overnight. You can literally swap them. We talk about the downsides of home making your meals. Like, you can't just go to the supermarket and get minced beef, because that's not the correct way of processing it for pets. And people who are just trying to do raw food without learning how to do it properly, they're running into issues, and that's where vets and other professionals, if they're more in the conventional world, they start to really not like and actually go against raw feeding. We talk about homeopathy for dogs and supplements if they've got joint issues, allergies, if they have digestive issues, if they have worms and fleas, what you can do for natural treatment. and how to find a holistic vet if you are local to him. But he does work online and he gives a resource to find holistic vets near you. So yeah, lots of resources. They'll all be mentioned in the episode show notes. I will probably be consulting with Dr. Nick at some point for little Norman if he runs into any issues. But yeah, an overall great episode. Maybe not for some of you, and I'm sure there's some people listening, they don't even have a dog, because that would have definitely been me last year. But yeah, enjoy this episode with Dr. Nick Thompson. Hi, Nick. Welcome to the podcast. It's so good to have you today.
Hey, Vivian, it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I've just looked at some of the interviews that you've done previously, and I don't think you've had a lot of guys on. So I'm very honored to be in this sacred feminine space. So thank you very much indeed.
Or pet information either. So I might have mentioned here and there, like I'm a dog lover. I recently bought a dog. His name's Norman. He's a little Chihuahua, 4 months old. And yeah, just me going into the world of buying a dog again for the first time in years. I'm like, oh my God, this is a whole new world. And I've loved looking into the research. And you were one of the top people that I was recommended. I was just like, talk to Nick. I was like, okay, who's this guy? And what's he got to say? And I know you're a big advocate of raw feeding, which I've been doing with Norman as well. So I just thought I'd have you on the podcast because I've been sharing a little bit about Norman's holistic journey as well and what we're doing with him on my Instagram. And people are like, please, can you do a podcast episode? Because we want to know as well. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense if you're like very holistic and then you're feeding your dog regular food.
Kibble.
And we'll talk about all of the myths and all of the different things that people should know about. And
I mean, you were saying that it's quite unusual that having somebody talk about dogs, but actually I imagine you talk about, I haven't looked through your entire 200 or 180 episodes, but I imagine you talk about the family, you talk about stress, you talk about relationships an awful lot, and Norman is now part of the family. And the dog within the family is an integral and fantastically important part of the family. And so if you and I both work holistically, if you're talking about the dog in isolation and you're not talking about the dog as part of a holistic picture of the family and the relationships, the resonance between the members of the family, I think then you're missing massive opportunities for healing and growth and understanding and learning. So that's why it's lovely to be here to talk to a fellow holistic practitioner.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And I was also in my research, it kind of just made sense when I started to think about it more, but even the connection with something like gut health and their behavior or their mood and their personality, or whether they're anxious or have behavioral issues or not. People just think, oh, it's just my dog. There's something's happened to him if he's a rescue and he can't be fixed, he can't be trained because he's too old now. But it could be like the same with humans, a bacterial imbalance in the gut, and improving that should improve the neurotransmitters. So even that, I was like, yeah, it makes sense, but why have I never put two and two together before?
I think that's really, really common, actually, that people in our world of holistic medicine and naturopathic medicine and what have you, they think about it for themselves. And yet they, as you say, they haven't put two and two together. They still go along, and they get, regular flea and tick products on a regular basis. Nothing wrong with flea and tick, but well, there is, but let's just have a broad view and just say they do what they say on the tin. But they haven't thought about applying what they've learned to other members of the family, the four-legged members of the family, especially the dogs, and cats as well. But I deal mainly with dogs these days. So, I think that an awful lot, there is a massive 90+% crossover between what we do for ourselves to keep ourselves well and balanced and energetic and vital, and what we can do for the dog and do the same thing. And so sometimes it's just a question of flagging that up and saying, hey guys, most of what you can do for yourselves, you can also do for the dog. Let's talk about that. So that's why this is a lovely conversation to have.
And I will say though, from me starting to go back into pet shops or down the pet aisle at the supermarkets and just having a look before I got Norman, there is a lot of I would read the labels of some of the foods and I'm like, salmon oil and like krill oil and glucosamine's been added for if they've got joint issues. But even some people don't even do that. They don't even consider trying some of the herbs and the omegas when they have health issues. But with their dog, they're like, oh yeah, let's get him all of this stuff. So I feel like some parts of it, people just completely overlook some key things, maybe like what feeding, but then other things, they know about supplements for dogs, but they would never take one for themselves.
I know. It's
or consider
funny,
going grain free if they've got allergies or digestive issues. People think, oh, let's change the diet, but still, if you go to a doctor and you tell them that you've got IBS, they're not going to recommend a grain-free diet.
No, they're not, unfortunately. I mean, that's a whole
that's all my other
area
episodes.
Yeah. Grain-free. The whole grain-free thing is, it's massive. I'm happy to talk about absolutely anything you want to go through. And I'll be led by you because you know your audience and their interests. I could talk about this stuff all day. Yeah, if you start me, and I do it on a regular basis. Yeah, it's called a seminar. We do webinars, which is kind of an hour or so. If people would like to do some kind of webinar, they get their dog group together. We can do webinars, but then we do seminars where I'm going to Helsinki at the beginning of September. In the middle of October, I'm going to Riga in Latvia to do some seminars for vets and for the public. And then at the end of October, we're going over to Istanbul, to Turkey to do the same.
Worldwide.
There's a lot of people who want this new information. And it's really exciting to have these conversations. It's a great day. I enjoy doing it as well, because it just gives me free rein to just talk to people and discuss ideas, and so it's really exciting. I love it.
I can tell you're passionate, but would you say this is new information, or is it kind of just ancient wisdom?
It's only been around for about 45 million years. So so it's relatively recent,
And what is it that got you into like veterinary medicine to begin with, and then make that shift over to holistic?
My dad was a doctor and my mother was a nurse, and just from the absolute and I faint at the sight of human blood. So if you put those things together, it's like, I'm not going to be a doctor. Also, I never wanted to stick needles into children. You can imagine having a screaming child who's dehydrated and you have to try and find an IV. And oh my goodness, I think the trauma of that, it's traumatic enough doing it with a distressed dog. But so I thought, I'm not going to be a doctor, but I wanted to learn about medicine because I didn't want anybody else having sovereignty over my body without my understanding. I'm quite happy to not know how a car works and to just hand it over to the garage. I'm quite happy not to know how my computer works and hand it over to the workshop. But with my body and the body of my family, I don't want anybody pulling the wool over my eyes whatsoever. So I've been researching vaccination. I've been researching nutrition. I've been researching medicine, conventional, homeopathic, herbal medicine over the years. And I've just been researching, microbiome and just general physiology, how to stay well, how to optimize health, and how to take the disease state and try and move it into a health state. That's kind of what I do. And I've been in veterinary medicine now. I started in 1986, and so where are we? 37 years I've been in veterinary medicine now. And I'm more interested in veterinary medicine now, and have been for the last 10 years, than I have been in my entire career. It's just getting more and more exciting every year, every month, every day. So I'm excited to share that information and to learn from people with whom I have discussions.
I think the foundation, like it is with humans, should be us talking about nutrition and diet to begin with, and then we'll get on to all of the other subjects, because I feel like if the food isn't right, then all of these other things that we're going to do aren't even going to be that successful in terms of their immune systems, if they're fighting off things like fleas and ticks. So tell me a little bit about what we need to know about nutrition for dogs, and especially the benefits of raw food.
Okay, nutrition for dogs is really, really easy. They've been eating, like I suggested earlier, they've been eating whatever they can find for 45 million years. Yeah, they divided from cats between 65 and 45 million years. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. So 45 million years, they've been canids of some sort. And they've been scavenging for that entire period. And they have evolved to optimize that varied nutrition, varied natural organic nutrition in the most incredible way. And then in the 1950s, Ralston Purina came along and said, we've got this stuff called kibble, and we can put, give you a bag of this dried stuff. It doesn't go off in the summer. It's not smelly, doesn't attract flies, and it's really easy for the food companies to move around the country because it's very light. Okay,
From the time
so
that
everybody,
the convenience food came in as well, isn't it?
oh, totally. Well, I mean, the first one was Ken L. ration, which was what was happening after the First World War. There were loads of horses that nobody wanted anymore, and the car was coming in, so they had all these horses. So what did they do? They stuck them in tins and sold them as Ken L. ration, as a tin dog food, and thus the food industry was born. It rarely does the food industry create new product, create new ideas from a health perspective. Yeah, they had too many horses, so they stuck them in tins, and it's the profit motive. As far as the food manufacturers, the food corporations, it's a profit driven thing. They want the cheapest ingredients with the biggest markup because of great marketing and what have you, and they're doing it to this very day. Yeah, we look at the big three corporations. They are Purina, which is Nestle, there's Royal Canin, which is Mars, and then there is Hills, which is Colgate Palmolive. Yeah, they're just
didn't realize it was the same companies who like run the human food industry as well. I should have known.
Money making machines. Yeah. So do they have at their very core the health of your dog at heart? Okay, and you could say the same for human beings. I don't believe they do, and I think that you need to feed real food. I don't think there's such a thing as dog food. Yeah, there's food, that's it. And what these corporations are selling you is ultra processed food. And we can talk about ultra processed food if you like, but essentially, if you go to the doctor, they say you've got to eat more real food, whole food, real food, plenty of vegetables, good quality meat, good quality fat. If you eat such things, they don't say you've got to eat more ultra processed food, pick up a bag in the waiting room on the way out. Okay. And so again, it's this disconnect. You were saying, healthy people may not feed their dogs healthily. It's a disconnect between what's the very best for human beings and what's the very best for dogs. And we all understand what's best for humans. Whether we do it or not is another thing, but we have an idea of what's healthy there. But with dogs, it's like, right, okay, well, we've got to give them a tablet every month because that's what they tell us to do. And we've got to put this drop on the back of the neck every month because that's what they tell us to do. And we've got to give them a jab every year because that's what they tell us to do. And we've got to feed them this kibbly stuff because that's the instructions. And I'm afraid it's really sad that it's all been simplified down to that level, because I don't think that it's the healthiest way to be. You and I try and avoid pharmaceuticals and pesticides like they're going out of fashion. We will do anything to avoid these things, and yet we are encouraged by the drug manufacturers, by the food manufacturers to use these dramatically ecologically inappropriate and physiologically inappropriate foods on our dogs. So it's a really simple thing that I do.
It makes sense when you actually say it in that way.
It absolutely makes sense. It's just if you believe the messages coming from the corporations, you'll just carry on, eating the McDonald's type or feeding the McDonald's type foods to your dogs, and then wonder why they're sick all the time, why they got grotty ears, bad teeth, bad gut, no energy, short longevity. Yeah, if you stick with the conventional paradigm, then you're going to get sick. And I'm talking about the human world as well as the canine world.
And that's why I had you on today, because even though it seems completely off subject, it's not. A lot of these things cross over.
It's massive crossover, which just makes it so interesting, because it means I can steal all the ideas from the human world and take them over and use them for education within the veterinary world, which is really exciting.
Would you say there's a problem with the synthetic nutrients that they add as well to the pet food? Because some of the kibbles, it's like got this added and this added, it's got these herbs and krill oil and all sorts of, it looks healthier, and there's obviously a spectrum as well with like the cheap low cost ones and then the organic kibble.
Yeah,
what's the difference with the synthetic nutrients versus what they're getting from the raw
synthetic
food?
Nutrients, there's absolutely no need for synthetic nutrients. You can use real food to get real nutrients. Boom, end of story. Okay, so what's the difference between a poor quality kibble, down like 15 quid for a bag, versus 80 quid for a bag? The difference is the difference between cheap cigarettes and expensive cigarettes. Okay. It's marketing, it's packaging, it's flavor, possibly, it's quality of ingredients, possibly, but they're all bad for you. It's just one is cheap and not very good for you, and one is expensive and not very good for you. If you don't use evolutionary principles to feed your dog, you're going to get into problems. It's the same with people. If you eat ultra processed food, you eating, I don't know, McDonald's on a regular basis, or even just ready-made food, with many ingredients, many synthetic emulsifiers, gums, preservatives, additives, colorants, and these kind of things, then your body doesn't really know what to do with those things, and your microbiome definitely doesn't know what to do with those things. And so you're just confusing the whole system. Whereas if you give meat and bone and organ and some veggies, some green veggies especially, some herbs, some nuts, some seeds, an omega-3 source, krill oil or flax oil, these kind of things, it's really simple. One of the key ingredients, Vivian, doesn't go in the bowl. One of the key ingredients is variety. It's really important. And so ideally you feed your dog, venison for 4 or 5 days. And then you go, right, then we're going to feed rabbit for 4 or 5 days. Then we're going to feed beef for 4 or 5 days. Then we're going to feed lamb for 4 or 5 days. And then we'll come back to the beginning of the cycle, maybe fish for 4 or 5 days. Variety really is key. There are no straight lines in nature, as they say. Okay, so that would be, I'm quite happy to talk to you more about that side of things. In fact, even easier for your viewers and listeners, I've done a video. You can find it on my website. The website is holisticvet.co.uk, and the video is called Raw Food, the Basics. Okay, can't get simpler than that. And I've done another one's Bones and How to Feed Them. Just 2 videos that you'll find them on the website, and that should be a very simple, it's a 90-100 minute overview, 10 short 10-minute lessons. Therefore it's bite-sized, so that you don't feel overwhelmed by the whole thing. But that's a really simple way to get onto the first rung of that natural nutrition ladder, if you like. Raw feeding is really simple. There are companies who've done the hard work for you. You just give them a ring and they will send you, a box. They'll send you overnight box of food. You put it in the freezer, defrost, and feed the dog. So that idea that, oh, I like to feed kibble because it's really convenient, I like to feed tins because it's really convenient. What's inconvenient about going to the freezer, taking out a pack of food, and then you can feed the dog a couple of hours later? So it's convenient, it's easy, it's fresh. It's not considered an ultra processed food. Dogs love it. Dogs get healthy on it. If you've got a dog, I'm rambling here. Tell me if
No,
you
it's
want to
good.
jump in.
It's answering a lot of my questions, so keep going.
Amazing. Okay, so if you've got a dog who seems pretty healthy, right? They're a 6-year-old Chihuahua, okay, and they're peeing and pooing and eating and drinking, and everything seems to be okay. You take them from the kibble and you take them onto raw food. Suddenly, you've got a different dog. The nose is wetter and colder. The teeth improve. The eyes less gunk coming out. The ears less gunk, maybe less itch. Quality of the coat improves. More silky, less smell. Bowels improve. Poos improve, much more pick upable. Yeah, this is the perfect poo. Perfect dog poo is a poo that you can pick up with 2 fingers. Yeah, obviously with a glove or a bag on your hand, like that.
Oh yeah, the raw food poos are completely different, aren't they?
Amazing, absolutely. It's like a sausage. Yeah, sausage just comes off the barbecue. You can pick it up with 2 fingers. That is, I've got a poo score, and that is a 10 up at the top. Down at the bottom is mulligatawny brown liquid soup. Okay, that's a 0, and halfway is kind of chocolate blancmange. Now you may think it's a little bit sick to have a poo score, but actually I have these
I do this
conversations.
with my clients, the Bristol stool chart.
Yeah, but is that a 7-point chart? Because there was the
Yeah.
Bristol
It's not
stool
as
chart. Yeah,
detailed as yours.
yeah, but I don't think, we've got 10 fingers. Why not have a 10-point scale? We've got a decimal scale for our money and for our counting and everything else. Why not have a 10-point scale? Because then you've got 100%, you've got 50%, you've got 0%. So there you go. I like a 10-point scale because I like it really, really simple, so that I can then have a conversation with somebody and say, how were the poos last week? Oh, they were 5s. How are the poos this week? Oh, they're 8s. And immediately you can see that 30% improvement without going, oh, well, they were a little bit Mr. Whippy, and that, now they're a bit like a solid Mr. Whippy. So there you go. You can have that one for nothing. It's the Thompson stool score. 10 points. Up the top is a nicely cooked sausage. At the bottom is mulligatawny soup, and in the middle you've got chocolate blancmange.
And apologies to anyone eating their dinner while
If anybody's having this dinner, I apologize, but you will thank me on bended knee for being able to discuss these things without
sausages with chocolate mousse for dessert.
Yeah, delish.
So yeah, a few questions within that.
Sure.
You mentioned before the importance of variety, so that's like number one most important thing.
Yeah.
And then you said the importance of having some like offal or organ meats, bone, vegetable. Like, what is that breakdown? Because I know that's also spoken about quite a lot.
Okay, so what we would normally do, and I go through it in the video, but I'll just give it to you now so that everybody's got it. So most of the bowl is going to be meat, i.e. muscle meat and bone and organ. Okay, so that's going to be about 80 to 90% of the bowl. In my head, I can see the bowl in front of me. It's a stainless steel bowl, and most of it, like in a pie chart, most of it contains those 3 elements. With the ratios of those 3 elements is very easy. The place to start is 80, 10, 10. 80% meat, muscle meat, 10% bony material, which is finely ground within the mince, unlike Marks and Spencer's mince. Okay, so that's why you shouldn't get your mince from the supermarket. You should get it from a reputable raw food producer. But coming back, 80% meat, 10% bone ground into the mince, and 10% organ meat, and actually half liver and half kidney or heart or other organ meats. Okay, so that's most of the bowl, and the rest will be blended green vegetables. So you've got this chopped up smoothie like 10 to 15% there. Okay, into the blender you'll put nuts, herbs and seeds. NHS, it's easy to remember. NHS, nuts, herbs and seeds. And then you'll add an omega-3 source. The best source is a marine, so that would be 1 month you do krill, 1 month you would do, say, wild salmon, not farmed salmon, and the next month you would do, say, pollock or anchovy or herring or something like that, because they've all got their superpowers. These amazing fish oils are so important. They're good for your skin, they're good for your joints, they're good for your hormones. Yeah, you know all about these things because the hormones. And thus you do, and within that you have variety. Your 80-10-10 is same thing for 5-7 days, and then you change to another species. Your veggies might be the same for 5 days, and then you change it. It's still greens. Your NHS, you change those. Your nuts, herbs, and seeds, you change those. I'm getting really excited about fermented vegetables. So those green vegetables, you can also use fermented cabbages and fermented vegetables of any sort, really, because you know the lactobacilli and the acid forming bacteria are, we are learning more and more, are really important. So you can experiment with these things, but giving sauerkraut, kimchi, and things like this to the dog is really big. And I would say for Norman, I would be thinking about getting those kind of things into the mix.
And they don't have to be prepared in a specific way, do they?
Chuck them in the blender, make a smoothie, mix it with the mincy material, and off you go. Yeah.
And you said before that there's some companies who make it really easy, deliver it.
Yeah.
I've been using Honeys.
Honeys,
so like no affiliation or anything with this. But am I right that they just do the meat, the bone, and the offal mix? They don't do like the nuts and the seeds or the additional salmon oils or anything, do they?
Yeah. All these companies do two main offerings. Number one is they'll do an 80-10-10 type, i.e. just the meaty material. And on the other side, they will do the meaty material with seaweed, with NHS, with vegetables and what have you. Okay, so you can either buy a complete, this one's called a complete, because it's got everything there, or you can buy the basics, the foundation, to which you add NHS and greens and fermented veggies and omega-3. So this is it. It's just, off the shelf. No, this one off the shelf. This one DIY.
Yeah. Are there any other companies that you recommend?
There are loads of those companies.
I have listeners in the US as well. Do you know any brands over there?
In the US, in the US, small batch are highly recommended. In the US, who else? Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but if you email me, I'll get you some recommendations in the States. The people to look at is Pets Naturally. They're a great company, and they will be able to advise you on companies. There's also in the States a wonderful woman called Susan Thixton, Thixton. Susan Thixton. Her site is The Truth About Pet Food, I think, and she has her top 30 recommended food producers, because her dog was damaged by kibble many years ago, and she is a warrior for transparency, for appropriate regulation of foods in the States, and she forensically examines all of these companies. And so in the States, you're lucky enough to have the wonderful Susan Thixton to do the hard work for you.
So anything to do with I've not watched it yet. There's a documentary. Can't remember what it's called, but that's about
Pet Fooled,
something like that.
Yeah, it's called Pet Fooled. It's definitely worth having a look at. If anybody's interested, have a look at Pet Fooled. There are one or two.
Is it on Netflix, that one?
It is on Netflix. Yeah, Pet Fooled, not pet food, but with an L.
I thought it was a good one like that. So I think that's it. What about in the UK? Any other brands that you recommend other than Honeys?
Brands in the UK, I've worked with them all more or less, but I would say just off the top of my head, I work with ProDog at the moment, so vested interest, but I love them. They're really good. ProDog Raw are great. Honeys, who you've mentioned, are really good. Honeys, real pet food. Also, we really like The Farmer's Dog. is Andy Gray down in Crediton. He does a lot of regenerative farming, and so we've got some really fabulous product there. Paleo Ridge, most of their range is organic, and they are a really great company to deal with.
Seen
As
them
are
more and
the
more
other ones.
in like my Sainsbury's has the Paleo Ridge stuff now.
Yeah. This is it. And if you look in Asda, you can now get Benefit Natural, BENYFIT, Benefit Natural. They're in there. They're a good bunch. You've also got Natural Instinct. They're very nice. You've got Nutriment. They're very nice. You've got Naked Dog. They're very nice. Basically, I'm going to get lynched for all the people who I forgot to mention.
There's bound to be one or two you forgot.
There's about 20 of who are reputable, very, they're really diligent, they really care, unlike the corporations. These companies that I've just mentioned, they are in it for the dogs. Okay, they're going to make a profit, obviously, in order to make the whole thing work. But I can absolutely tell you, most of them were started because they tried their dogs on raw and they saw the difference, and now they are, singing from the pulpit.
Like how a lot of us practitioners get started in the nutrition world, like chronically ill, no answers, no hope from the conventional route. So we have to heal ourselves and find this information, and then we can't keep our mouth shut. We want to help everyone.
It's exactly the same, Vivian. It's exactly the same. Yeah. We're traveling the same journey here, without a doubt.
So people can't complain that they don't know where to start. Like, we've just given you tons of companies to just contact, even Honey's, the customer service team. That's kind of what made me go with them, because they're so helpful that, like, even if you don't buy from us, we'll give you advice, like as many questions as you want to ask before purchasing. So it's like, right, I trust you. And if anything's ever wrong or I'm not sure about anything, they'll happily answer that. So I can just tell these smaller companies actually care, like you said.
Yeah, very much so.
Are there any other issues with people homemaking the dog food? Or in some cases, is it recommended that they make it from scratch?
In the first video, Raw Feeding the Basics, I recommend that you allow a company to provide you with the complete for the first few months. And then when you find your feet and you feel a bit more comfortable, then you can do it yourself. Okay. It's a bit like driving a car. You don't just jump in a car and race down the motorway. You have a driving instructor, then you have and you have L plates, and then you have a P plate, and then eventually you get onto the motorway. Exactly the same thing. It's find your feet, talk to people, do your reading. If the videos are useful, then you're welcome to look at those as well. It's a whole new world. You're taking the responsibility yourself, which is fine. You feed yourself, you feed your family, you feed everybody, and it's not difficult. It's
like, why are people so concerned with, especially with raw food, like make sure you get the right calcium to phosphorus balance? I'm like, do you ever think of that for your own children or yourself? Do you even know what phosphorus is?
Yeah. Or I think if you follow the basics, and we've just described them, most of the bowl is 80-10-10, and then the rest of the bowl is the green veggies plus some NHS plus some omega-3. That's you. Okay, you just make a variety within those simple ingredients, and your dog is going to think it's their birthday every single day. I promise you.
And I'm not going to ask too many more questions on diet because I want people to go watch the video. I'm guessing you cover the transition phase and how to incorporate it. Is that within the videos?
Yes, we do. Transitions are very easy. I'll give the game away right now. There's 3 major ways of doing a transition. The first is just cold turkey. On a Monday, you feed whatever you've been feeding, and on Tuesday and for the rest of the dog's life, you feed the new food. And most dogs, 80% of dogs, can do that. Most owners have a problem with it, but the dog is fine with that. Okay, so if you want to just take it easy a little bit, you can do the 4-day transition. So on the first day, you do a quarter raw, 3/4 of the old food, and then you do half and half, and then you do 3/4 raw, and then on the 4th day you're there. That's the second method, and then the third method is just a stretched out 4-day method. You take a week, or you take 10 days if you're trying to wean down on some food, or you just bought a bag of kibble or something like that. So transition is very easy. If in doubt, talk to your food company, talk to your raw store. Don't forget, there are independent raw stores now, I'm pleased to say, in most towns up and down the country, and these people are very knowledgeable. Again, they started their stores because they saw what happened when they put their dogs on, almost invariably. Yeah. So these are people who are really passionate about raw food. So talk to your company, talk to your raw store, or talk to, if you've got a vet locally who does raw food. There aren't many of us around, but we are around. If you have a look on the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society website, rfvs.info, rfvs.info, that's Raw Feeding Veterinary Society.info, you've got to find a vet page. Yeah, and there's vets in the States, and there's vets in the UK and Europe who are passionate about raw food, and they'll help you with these things.
What about the subject, which is probably one of the biggest things that comes up, of parasites and bacteria? I have many episodes on that for human health, but when I mention that to pretty much anyone, they're like, oh, they get very squeamish. And my sister-in-law's a vet nurse, and she was warning me about the dangers of parasites. She's seen like the worst case scenarios where people have done it absolutely terribly. They're using beef mince from Asda to feed their dogs. What about what's the issue, if at all? Do we need to be concerned at all with parasites?
Okay, so you've got two things. You've got parasites and you've got bacteria. So the first one's parasites. They are all wiped out by freezing. Yeah, so if it's in the freezer at -18 for more than a week, it's actually 2 days, but we'll call it a week just so that people don't whip the food out of the freezer before it's ready. Okay.
What about the eggs with the freezing process and then it being defrosted?
No eggs. There's no parasites in eggs. Yeah. Okay. So eggs, great. Ours have a fresh edge.
No, I mean the eggs of the parasite. Like they lay eggs. Do they survive the freezing?
The crystals, the ice crystals, come in and they destroy all parasites, and parasite eggs are killed by the freezing process, which is why you don't want to get mince from Marks and Spencer's or Asda or wherever and then give it to the dog. It is the first thing that you think about when you're doing it, but this is why just a tiny bit of research will pay dividends. Everything's got to go in the freezer. So if you buy chicken wings, they've got to go in the freezer for a week before they go into the dog. If you buy anything, it just has to go in the freezer for a week. That's it. It's very, very simple.
I even heard they get tested at the abattoir as well, the meat.
Oh, it's all very, very carefully. And if you get it, your raw food from one of the reputable manufacturers, they have squeaky clean premises, and they will batch test every batch that goes through for
probably even lower risk than human meat. Like with the whole milk and raw milk, a lot of the raw milk factory the farms are way more sanitary than the conventional ones. Very much so, because the raw food manufacturer knows that food is going to go raw into the dog, whereas if you're a supermarket, you can cope with 7% of your chickens having salmonella because they're all going to get cooked, guaranteed. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. So bacteria, there is low levels of bacteria in raw food, but I think that's actually a good thing because it has a probiotic effect on the canine gut, which has been facing these bacteria for 45 million years. That's what we've got to remember. Okay, they have got a very constructive relationship with these bacteria. We humans are we're not very good at coping with bacteria. We invented fire 50,000 years ago, and so we're not very good at defending ourselves from contamination. But if you think of it, a dog, a dingo, a wolf will eat a carcass that's been lying in the sun for 4 days. Hmm.
without any ill effect. Okay, so just having some really good quality meat from a good producer, it's absolutely
Yeah.
nothing to them.
Very, very
Also,
low risk.
you got to think of the context. The context is your dog goes to the park, walks in poo and pee and vomit and God knows what. They come home and lick their feet. Okay. When your dog in the park meets their friends, they stick their nose up their friend's bum. Okay, this is the context of the canine world. It's a dirty world. They will lick themselves clean, whereas you and I have a shower and it all goes down the drain. So it's a completely different context. And having taken tens of thousands of dogs onto raw food, I can categorically state that the bacteria do not cause a problem. And parasites, again, fleas, that's not a problem either. So these are the things that really people get very worried about, and vets get very worried about, and the World Small Animal Veterinary Association actually produced a paper saying benefit bugs, balance, and bones. Okay, these are the key areas. They say there's no benefit, but I can give you a dozen or more papers demonstrating the benefit of raw food. Benefit bugs. We've just discussed bugs. It's just a non-issue. Balance. They say, oh, all raw food is unbalanced. They then go home and eat an unbalanced meal. Humans do not eat balanced meals. They eat a balanced diet, but
Or
each
should do.
individual meal by definition is not balanced. Okay, it's just whatever you choose to eat that day. Yeah, even if you're a nutritionist, even if you know the calcium phosphorus ratio, you don't know the selenium, you don't know the magnesium, you don't know. Yeah, it's because it's impossible to know these things.
Just
And if you
overthinking it so much.
this is it. And if you know it on a chart, does that chart actually correlate with this spring lamb that happens to be, that you're choosing to eat that day? So I think there's a lot in nutrition. There's a lot of guesswork in nutrition. You wouldn't believe it if you looked at the literature, but actually I think there is a lot of guesswork. And the way to prevent excess and deficiency is variety. You feed fresh, you feed the best possible provenance of food possible, and you feed variety, and then the dog takes care of themselves, as they have been for millennia.
So where do they get worms from, and how do we get rid of them?
Where do they get worms? They get worms from the environment. If you think of it, that kibble fed, these are dogs eating sterilized food. Yeah, the kibble is sterilized, tins are sterilized, and yet those dogs can get worms. Okay, the truth of the matter is that the incidence of worms in adult dogs is really quite low, even if they have no pharmaceuticals whatsoever. How do I know this? The answer is, for 20 years, I've been doing fecal egg counts, yeah, where you send a poo sample off to the laboratory and you look for evidence of worms. And 19 out of 20 dogs have no worms whatsoever. If we do find worms, we can use, I work with a company called Vermex, and they've got a lovely product, and there's also diatomaceous earth which we can use, which worms absolutely hate. But if your gut is in great shape and if your microbiome is in great shape, it's a lot less attractive for parasites within that gut. The current paradigm is to routinely worm your dog on a regular basis. Now, with puppies, we often do, but from about 3 to 6 months, you can review that. But with the adult dog, I think that it is much more appropriate to do a test to see whether the dog's got worms or not before you start using a pharmaceutical, because the pharmaceuticals will always upset the microbiome. And we know that the healthier your microbiome, the better your immune system, the better your metabolic function and what have you. So that's really important. I would think against the idea of routine dosing with worm and flea treatment. Come to that. People say, oh, I must use it because otherwise the dog will get fleas. Well, you can see whether the dog's got fleas. And if you haven't got fleas, why would you use a flea product? You know, if you haven't got a headache, would you take an Anadin? You know, it's like taking an Anadin every morning,
Just in case.
just in case you get a headache, which is madness. Obviously, it's madness. And yet this is the mentality that we've been led into by the worm and flea manufacturers. You know, you've got to use our product, otherwise you might get fleas. You know.
And in a lot of ways, it's actually making them worse. It's like with antibiotics. If we did them preventatively for certain things, it's just making our immune system lower. So then we are actually more vulnerable to them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And also, you know, anthelmintics, which is a posh way of saying drugs against worms, the increase in resistance to these is absolutely terrifying, second only to resistance of bacteria to the overuse of antibiotics. So I think we owe it to our dogs and our planet to minimize the use of antibiotics, to minimize the use of worm products as well.
Is it similar as well with, like, in humans, if someone's eating low protein, if they're vegetarian, vegan, they get low stomach acid, so then they are more susceptible? Is it the same with animals? If they're eating kibble, do they develop low stomach acid and therefore low protection?
When you say low, does that mean low pH or just
I mean like low, like weak stomach acid?
Weak stomach. Okay, cool. Yes, if protein stimulates pepsinogen, which stimulates the stomach acid. So if you feed your dog protein, meat, muscle, organ, meat, you get very low. It automatically really drops the pH, which is then protective against bad bacteria, helps to really begin that digestive process. Whereas if you're feeding a kibble, there is a minimum of protein. You know, the official is only 18%. Okay, whereas when you're feeding meat, that it will be 30-40% protein because it's mainly water. So you're feeding possibly twice as much protein, which means you have that real reduction in the pH, increasing the acidity of the stomach, which starts a very, very positive and very healthy digestive process.
And what if the dog did have fleas? Do they also need, is it worth doing any like natural things is it like a flea season, or it's a higher risk?
Okay, so a lot of people say, well, I live in a ticky area, or I've got a cat and therefore the dog gets fleas at least once a year. And for those, like I say, I'm working with these guys, Vermex, can you see that? Vermex, flea and tick. It's a herbal preparation that you put in the food that makes the dog less attractive to fleas. Okay, so this is really good.
So when would you do that? Every day?
You would do that every day during the flea season. So you do go from say Easter to October ish, you know, or if you know that you're only going to have exposure during a short period, you could use it for a shorter period. Okay.
Would that get rid of an infection if it had them, or is it more preventive?
It depends. It depends how much fleas. Okay, for every one flea that you get on the dog, you've got 20 in the environment. Okay, so but there are worse things than fleas using these pesticides, I think. But it's a question of balance. Okay, if you've got a really terrible infestation with fleas, you're going to have to break out the pharmaceuticals, I'm afraid. So the thing to do is to try and avoid getting them in the first place. So we're using things like these herbal powders. You read that? Or my wife Ellie makes
insect defense spray Dermadog.
Which is really, really nice.
That's a topical.
And this is topical. You spray it on the dog, smells really fantastic, and the dog is less attractive to fleas and ticks. And I would say that it's a combination. There are other herb things that you can use. There are other sprays that you can use, but that combination we find is really, really very useful indeed.
Amazing.
Very much so.
And then I had some questions on my Instagram. I did a little poll for my audience, and they were asking about favorite supplements for certain conditions. So I'll pick like the main ones that people struggle with or people's animals struggle with. Joint issues to begin.
Joint issues, yeah.
What would you be thinking?
Yeah, there are 3 things that are guaranteed in this world: death, taxes, and old age arthritis. Okay, so we're all going to get it, and it's time to start thinking about it is in your early life, okay, because it's inevitable. It's just going to happen to us all.
Prevention, if you're looking
again. Sorry, prevention's better than cure. What we use, this is a sardine oil.
Nutricult by NutriVet.
Yeah. Okay, and if people can't get hold of it, just drop me an email, nick.thompson@holisticvet.co.uk. For all of these things, you might well be able to get them online. The other thing is by the same company. This is a chondroitin glucosamine product,
NutriQuin Plus,
but it also contains boswellia, which is frankincense, which is a really beautiful anti-inflammatory. So I love that product, I really do. And the other one, which is a secret, I'm out of focus. Oh, there you go. That's better. This is really interesting. This is a
Anatol.
Antinol. Funny name, but it's an extract of fish oil.
Oh, cool.
And it kind of turbocharges. So you got sardine oil going in there, and you can turbocharge it with the antinol. And
can you do too many omegas? Can that throw off the like fatty acid ratio?
But
it's unlikely.
Yeah, it's unlikely because most of us wander around with the fatty acids, omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 20:1. Okay, so you've got to really go some to give too many omega-3s. You can if you really went to town, but I think within, if you follow the instructions, these things have got instructions on them. So it depends on the weight of the dog, and you just dose according to weight. It's simple as that, really.
Cool. The next condition, which I think Norman is struggling with, I thought he had fleas.
I'll just add, the arthritis. One of the most, okay, you can use these things. However, the most important thing is to reduce weight so that the dog is at the appropriate weight for its age and breed and what have you, and a raw food diet. Okay, I would use these, but I would first have the conversation to say, can you expect the joints to be in the best shape if you're feeding a high carb, ultra processed, kibbled diet? It's like trying to go to the Olympics eating bananas and water. It's just not going to happen, or Mars bars, just on eating Mars bars. That's it. Yeah. Do they have energy? Yes, they do. Do they have carbohydrate? Yes, they do. Are you going to go to the Olympics basing your training on Mars bars? I'm afraid not.
And the raw food diet automatically is grain-free as well, isn't it?
It's automatically grain-free. Yeah. Dogs have zero requirement for grain.
And that is something that people go to when they develop joint issues, or it's recommended. So you might as well just go the extra step after that and go raw for many more benefits.
Why wait to get sick to improve your health? Yeah, and we can make a decision whether we want to improve our diet and what have you, but you got to feed the dog something. So you might as well feed something really, really great and really evolutionarily appropriate. Is my take on it. Why wait to get sick? Yeah,
agreed.
Totally.
So allergies, I think Norman is struggling with a grass allergy because he came home from the breeder and he was itching. I thought he had fleas. I was sleep deprived because he was crying in the night, and I just went insane and thought he had fleas and was washing everything a million times.
Yeah,
but he's still itching. He doesn't have fleas, so I'm thinking it's a grass allergy.
How old is he?
4 months.
He's 4 months old. Okay, so he could have a grass allergy. They usually hit them a little bit later, but that is a possibility.
They can also be naturally itchy when they're puppies.
When they're young, yes, it's like cradle cap. Yeah, because various reasons, but yes, a puppy tends to be a little more scratchy than the equivalent sized no, the equivalent age, say a year later, perhaps. Yeah.
He's also like sneezing and his eyes get a little bit like wet underneath.
It's been a really bad year. This is 2023. It's been a really bad year for pollen. Yeah, because it gets hot and then wet and then hot and then wet, and the trees are going yay, and the grass is going yay, and it's loads of pollen around. It's been a really, really bad year.
Right.
So let me just give you 1 minute on why dogs get itchy. Okay, so there are 3 main reasons dogs get itchy. Number 1 is parasites, fleas, and mange. Okay. Number 2, and you can find those and eliminate them, hopefully without a pharmaceutical, but you can eliminate those. So that's number 1. Number 2 is allergies, and number 3 is infection. Number 2, so allergies, they're actually sensitivities, but everybody knows them as allergies. 3 main types of allergies: indoor allergens, house dust mite; outdoor allergens, tree pollen, grass pollen; and food. Okay, so yeah, these are the sensitivities, 3 sensitivities. If your skin is itchy, red, and hot because you've either got parasites or you've got sensitivities, you will be predisposed to infection. And in section 3, the parasites, the infection, there are 3 main, this is all the 3s. It's really good. So 3 main infection. Number 1 is yeast. These are the slightly grayish, cheesy smelling, yeasty infections. There are staphylococcal, there are bacterial infections, mainly staphylococci, which are kind of collarettes or a scurf throughout the skin that you can't get rid of. And number 3 is fungus. Yeah, things like ringworm. Okay, so yeast, bacteria, and fungi. Those are the infections, but they only come along because something else is going wrong, and it's usually allergies. Yeah, indoor, outdoor, and food allergies.
So how do you find out? Just trial and error?
When the dog is a year old, you can do a blood test to find out what those sensitivities are. Food wise, you can just put them onto one protein, make sure that the treats are the same as the headline protein. You put them onto that and see if that changes the itch. Yeah, because he may be chicken intolerant.
Yeah, I heard that. That was something that I'd never heard before.
Wheat, beef, and chicken are the 3 most common allergens because they're the most commonly fed proteins. Yeah. So wheat, beef, and chicken. So if he was mine, I would immediately take him off any wheat, beef, and chicken. Okay, and I would use something a little bit more unusual. So talk to your supplier about maybe some venison or some duck, or some goat or pork or something like that instead. Okay, and you just do blocks to do food trials, because if he got a lot more itchy when he went on to chicken,
I think it does contribute, but I think there's something else as well. I think it's pollen and chicken.
It might well be. But
and a little bit of regular puppy itching as well. But yeah, it's not too bad. But I'm like a concerned mum.
So therefore, we would have to just make an assumption there. You can get homeopathic remedies that will help with pollen allergies. Yeah, just as we use homeopathics for hay fever. We can do the same, and I'm having a lot of success this year with dogs who have a problem with this avalanche of pollen that we're having this year, and so we're using the homeopathics, and they're more useful this year than I've seen ever before.
That's good.
Which is brilliant. I'm really pleased.
Would there be any additional supplements for allergies?
For allergies, well, so number 1 is go raw. Number 2, make sure you're getting your omega-3s.
Yeah.
Because omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, and even conventional dermatologists love omega-3s. Okay, so that's really, really important. The other supplement that I would suggest is really useful. We use a human product.
Oh yeah, Solgar quercetin complex.
Yeah. Can you read that?
Yeah.
I've got a shine on it from here, but it might be more clear.
Quercetin complex.
Yeah. So we use quercetin. That's the one I've
Do you open up the capsule and sprinkle it into the food?
Depends what's the size of the dog. So so also some dogs don't like capsules, and therefore you have to kind of sprinkle it in. That's fine. Some dogs will take it, you know, you just put it in a bit of meat and they'll just take it straight off. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, but you can give with food. That's not a problem. The other product that we use, as well as a raw food diet, plenty of omega-3s, not too many pharmaceuticals, which applies to every conversation I have. Those elements are in it. Just as
Yeah, like
Luke
do
covered.
those things, then come back to me.
Oh no, yeah, not necessarily. But I mean, people usually want to get cracking. So I'll say, right, this is a suite of things we're going to do. It's not just that we're going to add to the offering. We're also going to remove some stuff that's going into your dog on a regular basis.
Yeah, there's no point trying to like lower inflammation if you're just causing inflammation every day.
Yeah, and if you're actively putting a pesticide on your dog every month, and you then wonder why they're not getting well or why they go off color for 3 days every month, you know, that's the kind of thing. It's pretty basic once you look at it. This is a really lovely product that we've got. It's called Skinnies, and we ship this in by the crate load from the States. It's really, really lovely. We're just about to start a shop, actually. It's called Holistic Vet. It's the holistic.
Yeah, it might be up by the time this goes live. So
it might well be on by the time this goes live. Yeah, and you'll be able to get all of these goodies.
What about the homeopathics? Does that need like a consultation?
Homeopathics. If you know what you want, you can go straight to your homeopathic pharmacy. I use Helios homeopathic pharmacy. I use Freeman's homeopathic pharmacy in Glasgow because I know the boss there. We did training together many years ago. But in London, you've got Ainsworth's. But you know what? It's going to be posted to you whether you live in Kensington or Nottingham. It doesn't matter where you get them. So Helios, Ainsworth's, Freeman's, they're all great. You ring them up, say what you need. We can supply. We can't prescribe homeopathics, but if you say, please going to have this, this, and this, we can make those up and send those out to you. And that's really great. If people want some more guidance with their homeopathics, then I'm really happy to consult. You know, my dog does this and this and this. Can homeopathics help? Yeah, we can have that conversation. If people are looking for a really good book, have I got it handy? Hang on.
And you work 100% online? Or do people need to bring their pets in for the first appointment or anything?
Mostly online. If it needs to be seen, I see them, because everybody has a primary vet. And I can be in communication with the primary vet. And if we need blood tests, I can ask them to do the blood tests and things. But yeah, anything's possible. We can do these things now. Right. So I was going to say, I've got the book somewhere. It's just I can't see it. Hang on.
I love your little apothecary behind you.
Yeah, there's lots behind me here. So the book that I would suggest people get if they're interested in homeopathics for cats and dogs, it's by a friend of mine called Don Hamilton, as in Donald, Don Hamilton, and it's called Homeopathic Care for Cats and Dogs.
Cool. Yeah, I got really into homeopathy the past couple of years because my friend's studying. I used it, cleared up a wisdom tooth infection like that. So I'm like, right, I am hooked. And I use it for all sorts now. So yeah, little Norman's going to be on it eventually.
Yeah, great.
I have a couple more questions if you have another 5-10 minutes.
Got another 5 minutes,
yeah. So I asked you before the call, you said save it so we can share the answer with everyone. In terms of insurance, when I've been looking, it's mainly like if your dog has recurring ear infections or diabetes and joint issues, like you need this high level of cover that's like £50 a month. And then I've seen options where it's accident only. And if I am going to be spending money on supplements and giving him raw food, do I need that comprehensive cover, or is accident cover only enough?
Okay, it's impossible to tell what's going to happen down the road. So you can't say. However, my experience is that the raw-fed dog is much healthier and less prone to chronic disease being long-lasting disease. So if you've got a dog and you're doing a lot of work at home with food and supplements and what have you, you may not need a cover from whichever company you choose to go with, that is kind of specializing more in, we will cover your dog for long-term disease. Okay, what you definitely do need is cover for broken legs or third party cover and things like that. So, but it's chance. It's how risk averse are you. Some people say, oh, I just want the very best every time. The other way of doing it is that you just get basic cover with your insurance company, and you put a few quid into the bank every month in the hope that you're never going to have to use it.
Do you have any recommendations for companies? Or
I can't do that as a vet. I can't do that.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
Can't share them with you.
Okay, no problem. And then last question I got quite a lot was about the vaccinations for dogs. Does this fall into the category of like the flea treatments, the dewormers? Do we test beforehand?
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically an hour's discussion, but very briefly, if you vaccinate, you may get problems. If you don't vaccinate, you may get problems. That's where you start the conversation. The second thing is to say that you are not obliged to vaccinate your dog. It depends how risk averse. After having a proper discussion with your vet and finding out the pros and the cons of the vaccine, pros and the cons of the diseases, then you can make a decision. Because otherwise, all you're doing is you're going along because you feel obliged, and you're getting a jab because you feel obliged, and you go home and cross your fingers. Okay, so I would say it's worth finding a holistic vet, and I'm not the only one in the country, and having the discussion. What are the pros? What are the cons? Is there a halfway house? With my dogs, we gave a single parvo vaccine at about 20 weeks. Okay, that was my decision there, because I believe that distemper is pretty rare in the UK, and hepatitis is very rare in the UK, and leptospirosis, I don't like the safety record personally, other vets will say otherwise, of the leptospirosis vaccine. There's a Facebook group called Nobivac Lepto 4 Our Experiences. Okay, Nobivac Lepto 4 Our Experiences. And if you want the counter narrative to the one that you'll get from the vaccine manufacturer, that would be worth seeing, because then you'd have two sides of the story.
And is that something that usually gets done annually, like booster things?
Distemper, hepatitis, and parvo are traditionally done every 3 years throughout the dog's life, and leptospirosis is recommended to be done every 12 or so months.
But you just do yours once with the parvo, and then that's it? Can it last lifelong?
Oh, the World Small Animal Veterinary Association, in black and white, say a single DHP, i.e. combined or individual P, can last a lifetime.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. It's like many of us had vaccines as kids, and we don't get vaccinated again. Why should it be any different for dogs? Okay. The answer is it doesn't need to be with most of the vaccines. It does not.
Not the case the past few years. That's a whole other subject.
I'd be really happy to talk to you about that, actually, because well, you can imagine where I am on that. I'm not vaccinated, and my family is not vaccinated, and I'm really glad with all the information that's coming out now. I'm very glad that I didn't, but it provokes a lot of very strong reaction, and I believe we should have fully informed consent. I don't think we had that for 3 years.
We were promised it's safe and effective.
Yeah. And yeah, so there's a lot to be said there, but I think people should be able to choose for themselves once they've had here's the pros, here's the cons. this is the research that we've done, this is the safety studies, these are the vaccine injured, you know, and what have you. I think it's informed consent, and I don't think we've had that up to date.
Yeah, totally agree with humans and animals. Same.
Well,
Same
with
premise.
animals, you know, the COVID vaccine was a new experimental gene modification technique. It wasn't even a vaccine, in fact. However, vaccination in humans, you know, we can choose, you know, are we going to get vaccinated, are we not? Your dog has no choice.
No.
And so you need to do the research, and I think you need to make sure that you have gained as much information as possible to make that informed decision. Remember, if you vaccinate, you may get problems. If you don't vaccinate, you may get problems. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So do your research.
That's the
Amazing.
most important thing.
Yeah, and I'll put all of your details in the episode show notes. I'm sure people are going to be reaching out and wanting to try the different products, and yeah, hopefully your online shop will be available then.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I have learned a lot, and little Norman's going to benefit from this conversation as well. So he thanks you. He's downstairs napping at the moment.
Okay, fabulous.
Thanks so much.
It's great, Vivian. It's
Nice
great
to
to
meet
talk
you.
to you. Thank you very much indeed. All the
No
very
problem.
best to you and your followers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love for you to leave me a rating and review on your podcast app, as this helps to support the show and it allows it to reach more people with this valuable information. Come and say hi over on Instagram. I'm at Viva Natural Health. And if you haven't already, check out my website, vivanaturalhealth.co.uk, for tons more free resources and to discover how I could support you further. I currently offer one-on-one consultation packages if you want my top level support, then more affordable group programs and self-paced online courses. So there really is something for everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you back here next week for another episode.